When you disappear, everything changes. But not because people suddenly start missing you. It changes because, for the first time in a long time, you stop spending your energy trying to be seen and start using it to rebuild yourself. Maybe you're too available, replying too often, keeping up with too much, explaining yourself too much, and without realizing it, the noise of the world has taken over the space that should belong to you. That's why at certain moments in life, one of the most powerful decisions you can make is to go off the radar for a while. Not to run away from your problems, not to punish anyone, and certainly not to find out who will notice you're gone, but to see again what all that noise has been keeping you from seeing. Marcus Aurelius lived surrounded by wars, conflicts, and responsibilities that could have consumed any man. Yet he constantly wrote to himself, as if returning to an inner fortress. He understood that the world may demand your presence without having the right to possess your mind. But here's what almost no one tells you. When you go off the radar, peace doesn't come first. Discomfort does. Without all that noise, you begin to notice the restlessness you've been hiding behind distractions, the habits you justified by saying you didn't have time, the plans you talked about but never acted on, the need to know what everyone else is doing, saying, and thinking. And this is where many people run straight back to the noise, because stepping away from it means finally facing what they've been trying to avoid, themselves. But if you don't run, something begins to change. You regain space to think. You start separating what truly matters from what was simply consuming your attention. You notice which habits are draining your strength, which commitments no longer make sense, and how much of your life has been dictated by everyone else's pace. Until an uncomfortable truth appears. Maybe you weren't tired of life. Maybe you were tired of everything you allowed into it. That's what we're going to talk about today. Not disappearing so people will value you more, not abandoning people or becoming cold, but knowing when to step back so you can rebuild what all that noise has been slowly tearing down inside you. Because going off the radar without a purpose is just isolation. But going off the radar with a purpose can allow you to return to the same places, meet the same people, and face the same problems without becoming the same person again. And there's a change that happens during this process that goes deeper than focus, discipline, or productivity. Once it happens, you understand why some seasons of life require you to stop showing up for the world and finally start showing up for yourself. 1. Step away from the noise so you can see clearly again. When you live surrounded by notifications, opinions, demands, and constant stimulation, you start confusing movement with direction. You're always busy, but rarely stop to ask whether the things filling your days deserve to fill your life. The Stoics valued self-examination for exactly this reason. Stepping back doesn't mean rejecting the world. It means creating enough distance that you don't allow the world to think for you. Start by turning down the volume on what isn't essential. Spend some time away from social media. Take a walk without your phone. Sit for a few minutes without consuming anything and notice where your mind goes. You may discover that some emergencies were never emergencies at all, and that some worries you thought were yours were simply absorbed from the people and environment around you. Distance restores perspective. If you never step away from the noise, eventually you start believing the noise is life itself. 2. Learn to be comfortable in your own company. When distractions fade, peace doesn't always appear. Often boredom comes first, then restlessness. Your hand reaches for your phone almost automatically. You feel the urge to fill every minute because being alone with your own thoughts starts to feel uncomfortable. That's where the real training begins. Seneca understood that someone who cannot be alone with themselves will eventually search the outside world for a permanent escape from what they carry within. So practice not obeying every impulse to distract yourself. Take a walk without headphones. Sit for a few minutes without a screen. Give your mind time to slow down. There's a difference between being alone and abandoning yourself. Silence reveals before it heals, and maybe that's exactly why so many people are afraid of it. 3. Discover what's been draining your life. Once you create some distance, patterns that were invisible before begin to reveal themselves. You notice how much time you gave to conversations that went nowhere, habits that merely numbed your exhaustion, and commitments you kept only because you'd never stopped to question them. Epictetus taught us to distinguish between what is within our control and what isn't. Apply the same clarity to your attention. You can't control everything that reaches you, but you can decide what continues to occupy space in your life. Ask yourself, Does this strengthen me, or does it simply keep me occupied? Don't use that question as an excuse to abandon responsibilities or cut people out of your life impulsively. Use it to regain discernment. Maybe all you need is less screen time, better protection of your mornings, one unnecessary commitment removed, or the courage to stop feeding a habit that always leaves you worse than before. Every unnecessary thing you remove creates space for something essential. And if you want to build the habit of protecting your inner peace and growing in maturity, subscribe to Stoic Spring. Every reflection here is meant to help you build a more conscious mind and a steadier life. But there's a trap. Recognizing what's wrong doesn't mean you've changed. The real test begins when no one is watching and you have to decide what you're going to do with the space you've just reclaimed. 4. Rebuild yourself where no one is watching. Now your time away needs a purpose. The time you've reclaimed needs to start building something. Read, take care of your body, organize your routine, put your finances in order, return to the project you've been postponing. But don't try to rebuild your entire life in 3 days. Choose a few things and repeat them consistently. For the Stoics, philosophy wasn't just something to talk about, it was something to practice. You don't become disciplined because you understand discipline. You become disciplined when you begin acting according to what you know, even on the days when you don't feel like it. If you want better focus, train your focus. If you want a stronger body, move it. If you want to trust yourself more, start by keeping small promises to yourself, and don't turn every sign of progress into an announcement. There's a special kind of strength in getting better without needing to prove immediately that you're getting better. A tree doesn't interrupt its growth to show everyone how far its roots have spread. It simply keeps deepening what no one can see until what everyone can see becomes the inevitable result. Build roots before you seek applause for the fruit. 5. Stop needing to be seen in order to keep going. This is the deeper change I promised you at the beginning. At some point, you realized that the greatest benefit of going off the radar wasn't becoming more productive, training harder, or organizing your routine. It was discovering that you can keep going without an audience. You read because it strengthens your mind. You train because you respect your body. You work toward your goals because they matter to you, even when no one asks how they're going. As long as you need to be seen in order to keep going, part of your discipline still belongs to other people. When recognition disappears, your motivation disappears with it. But when you learn to act without applause, you reclaim something precious, the direction of your own life. That doesn't mean rejecting praise or recognition. It simply means you no longer need them to continue. You don't step away so they'll miss you. You step away to discover what you've been missing in yourself. And once that happens, going off the radar stops being a strategy to provoke a reaction from anyone else. It becomes a way of returning to yourself. 6. Come back, but don't come back as the same person. Eventually you have to return. Stoicism doesn't teach you to hide from life. It teaches you to participate in life without handing the world control over your mind. You return to your responsibilities, conversations, problems, and perhaps even the same places. But now you know you don't have to keep up with everything. You don't have to fill every silence. You don't have to turn every empty minute into another distraction. And maybe no one notices your change right away. That's okay, because a transformation that needs to be noticed in order to have value is still dependent on other people's eyes. Real change shows up in what you do when no one is watching, in the choices you refuse to repeat, and in the peace of following your path without announcing every step. When you disappear, everything changes. But maybe now you understand what that really means. The world didn't necessarily change because you went off the radar. The same people kept living their lives. The same problems continued to exist. Life didn't stop and wait for you to come back. You changed. You created distance so you could see, silence so you could listen, and space so you could rebuild. So if you're going through a season of life that is asking for less noise, don't be afraid to become less available for a while. Just don't disappear to escape. Go off the radar with a purpose. Use that space to reclaim your mind, your discipline, and your direction. If you want to keep building the habit of protecting your inner peace and growing in maturity, subscribe to Stoic Spring. And write in the comments, I'm going off the radar to rebuild myself. Maybe the world won't notice right away that you've changed, but you will. And after that, going back to who you used to be will become harder and harder.